I'm back. Let me know now how it's going, you guys. How are you finding it now? We still have a lag on YouTube? Let me know. Is this better for you guys? Hello, hello. About to start the training. Hey guys. Yep, here we are. Did you find me? All right. All right, there we go. We're getting back on. We're getting back on. Hello on YouTube, Facebook. We're back live. Sorry, I had a little technical difficulty there. You guys finding me on YouTube now? Say hello in the chat over on YouTube. Let me know, is this coming in better now? I know that the video was lagging a second ago. Is it any better now? We're doing better now? Tassawar says it's good now. Good. Yeah, I had to restart my computer. It was just, I don't know, junked up and lagging. So here we are back on YouTube. Thanks, Tassawar, for confirming. Good. I'm glad it's still coming in okay. All right. Way better now, says Norair Gevorkian. Thank you for being here, Novair. Good to see you guys. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Isabella. Isa, are you back here as well? All right. Well, look, good. Mustafa's here. He says it's good. All right. Sounds like we're okay now. So look, let's then cut to the chase here. Let's go to the training. I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully that doesn't cause it to lag again. Let's see. Just give me 5 seconds here. You can see me in the little screen thing there, little circle there, but not my screen yet. Alrighty. Okay, now I'm going to share my screen. Try that again. There we are. And yeah, there it is. All right. 2 questions. Tim Bond says, thank you for your videos. It helped me a lot. Tim, did you already have your interview? Let me know, Tim, did you already have an interview? And if so, how did the videos help you? Did the videos on our YouTube channel, on Political Asylum Lawyers YouTube channel, help you to prepare for the interview? Man, if you just had your interview, Tim, then I'm sorry you didn't get to see this training first, because this training that you're seeing on my screen right now is all about the asylum interview. It's 50 strategic insider tips for your asylum interview with USCIS. Jason McKenzie, thank you for joining us. Good to see you, Vut Morg. All right, sorry about the technical difficulties with the lag a bit earlier, but I'm glad you guys found your way back. Tim, let me know before I'm about to start, but let me know. Fingerprints tomorrow. Oh, okay, good. Tim, so you haven't had your interview yet. Then I think you're in for a treat. Because I think this training that we're about to do right now is going to help you. Oh, Tim says you helped me with the initial paperwork. Gotcha. Cool. So yeah, we have it for those of you who are new to our YouTube channel. We've got some super detailed trainings, some tutorials that are incredibly detailed. It sounds like Tim used one about the asylum application. I've got a video called How to Fill Out the USCIS Asylum Application, and it's like, I think it's over 2 hours long, right, Tim? Super detailed, where I go over almost every single question that's on there. So it's really detailed. If you go to YouTube, go to Political Asylum Lawyers, and then look at our playlist, you'll find some really detailed trainings, okay? All right, so today is not a typical Q&A. It's not a typical live where I do Q&A. Instead, I'm going to go through this presentation that you're seeing on the screen right now, okay? So, in fact, I'm going to get started. This training is called 50 Strategic Insider Tips for Asylum Success, your guide to navigating your asylum interview with confidence and clarity. And I'm the one who created this training, and I'm the one who's delivering. I'm Brian Manning. I'm a former USCIS asylum officer turned into now an asylum lawyer. All right. Stick with me. Keep watching this for a special surprise. All right. If you stay with me, I think you're going to like what I have to offer you in just a few minutes. Okay. All right. So I'm going to give you 50 tips, okay? 50 different insider perspectives informed by my time in the asylum office. And these are things that you need to know. They're going to help you to do a great job at your asylum interview. Actually, let me go back one and tell you before I get to the first tip. I want to stress this. The asylum interview is the most important part of your case, Okay. It's much more important than your documents. It's way more important than what you said in your application. It's more important than what you say in your declaration. It's more important than your evidence. It's more important than having a lawyer with you on the day, representing you on the day of your interview. What you say at your asylum interview, your testimony, how you tell your story in answering the questions that are put to you, that's the most important part of your case. I'm going to say more about that in these tips in a second, but it's so important that I want you to know that up front before we get into the tips, because I want you to keep that in mind. The asylum interview is the most important thing in your case, and you actually can prepare for it in a serious and systematic way, such that you can significantly increase your chances for success. And look, you guys are here doing this asylum interview training, so that's the first step. You're on the way to increasing your chances for asylum success. So thanks for being here. I'm glad you're here. Let's get started. Look, the first thing I want you to know about is just understanding the asylum interview structure. So many people go into this not really knowing what to expect, and then that makes them a little bit more nervous because fear of the unknown is unsettling, right? So I want to tell you about the 5 specific phases of an asylum interview, or what you face on the day of an asylum interview. Number 1 is just check in and sort of doing some preliminaries where you go to a little window and you basically check in. And then once you're back in the asylum officer's office, you have some more of that, some sort of preliminary stuff where they explain the rules of kind of like lay the groundwork for sort of what's going to happen that day, go over kind of the rules, and then you take an oath to promise to tell the truth. Just basically some kind of administrative stuff like that. Sign a couple forms, administrative preliminary stuff. And then next is the Form I-589 review, where the officer is going to go through your asylum application with you in great detail. They're going to go over almost every single box and say, is this still correct? Or tell me about this, and ask you the questions. And it's your chance to make sure that the application form is updated. Okay, any corrections that need to be made or any updates that need to be made, you're going to go over and do it during the second part of the asylum interview. And the third phase is the main part of the interview, the meat of the interview, the substantive question and answers, where the officer is really asking you the tough questions to get to know your case and to understand your case and see whether you meet all the eligibility requirements for asylum. Next, the fourth phase is security questions, or what we call the mandatory bar questions. They have to ask every single applicant. Most people, most of the time it's basically like, are you a criminal? Are you a terrorist? Asked like 15 different ways. Okay. And then finally, the fifth phase is the closing, where they kind of give you sort of some wrap up information and instructions on how you're to receive your decision. They'll tell you either you have to come back in 2 weeks to pick it up at the office here in person, or we're going to mail it to you, and they explain how that works. So those are the 5 phases of the asylum interview. Now you know you're going to go through all 5 of those things on the day of your asylum interview. Okay. Second thing you need to know is the truth about small talk. So look, when the officer has you back there in their office, at the beginning, during that first phase that I talked about, the sort of intro and preliminary stuff, they'll do a little bit of small talk. Oh, hey, how was your commute in today? How long did it take you to get to the office? Do you like the weather this time of year? Just, icebreakers, maybe ask about your family, act like they're kind of your friend. Well, this is important, okay? Because some asylum seekers, they think, oh, I can just sort of say whatever I want here. I don't have to be on guard or be cautious or thoughtful about what I'm saying. I'll just sort of talk like we're friends. That's not a good idea. This officer is not your friend, and they actually can use this stuff against you. Actually, hold on, guys. You know what? You guys are not seeing my change in my slide, are you? 1 second, because I'm on like the 3rd slide. Hold on, I'm going back to the screen share here. I'm gonna go back to my camera and go back to the screen share and make sure that you guys can keep up with me on the slides, because I already changed slides twice and you guys didn't see it. Hold on, let me go back. Yeah, you guys got this now, right? Let me check here. Yep, you're seeing, yeah, so this is the slide that I was telling you all about a second ago, where those are the 5 phases of the interview. Sorry you guys didn't get to see those cool graphics that went along with what I was saying. So that's, if you want to take a screenshot, great. That's the 5 phases of the asylum interview. Now, let me see if you guys are staying with me as I move forward. Yep, now you got me. In the comments, you guys seeing the slide change now, right? Can you let me know in the comments? You saw the intro slide, and then you saw number 1, and now you see number 2, the truth about small talk. You good? You seeing it in the comments on YouTube? All right, cool. So look, the truth about small talk, this initial seemingly informal chat at the beginning of the interview, actually there's more to it than meets the eye. The officer is actually looking at what you say very carefully. They're kind of establishing a baseline of your demeanor so they can see if it changes throughout the interview, and maybe that will be telling about your credibility. Um, and the important thing here is that this can be used against you. If you say something carelessly that actually ends up contradicting something you say later or something that's in your documents, they can use this against you. It doesn't matter that it's occurring in the context of seemingly innocent small talk at the beginning before you get into the real questions about your case. It can be used against you, okay? So, really, from the moment they call your name out in that waiting room, they're evaluating you, and everything sort of counts from the moment you make contact with that officer. You're being judged. Okay, just keep that in mind. Okay, the first, last, worst framework. We're on number 3 of things you need to understand to maximize your chances for success at your USCIS asylum interview. Now, look, uh, this is the first, last, and worst framework. What is this? Sometimes when a person has endured a lot of incidents of harm or a lot of threats, there's just not time to talk about all of them in detail. And so the officers use a shortcut. They want you to tell them in detail about the first time that you were harmed or threatened, and then the most recent time so that they can sort of get a sense for how long ago it was, and this might be indicative of whether someone still wants to harm you. And they also want to know about the most severe incident, like the time that was the worst, the time that you were harmed the worst, or the most significant threats. So the first incident, the last or most recent one, and then the most severe or worst one. Okay, so look, you need to really be ready to talk about all incidents of harm and threats. But if there's been like so many things that it's hard for you to really think about them all and to focus on them all, definitely focus in great detail and practice being able to talk in significant detail about these 3: the first, last, and worst. All right, number 4, handling the final question. So at the end of the near the end of the substantive portion, the Q&A, the officer's going to ask you something like, oh, is there anything else you want to tell me, or anything we haven't talked about yet that you want me to know? Something to that effect. Okay, now they always ask this. They have to ask you this. Um, and sometimes the answer should be, no, officer, I'm good. But sometimes there will be things that you want to bring up. It's a common mistake that people think they have to say something here. They have to say, well, yes, officer, I just want you to know that, I'm a good person, or I have a strong case. And then they maybe try to repeat a bunch of stuff they've already said. That's not helpful. If you don't have anything to actually add, just say, no, officer, I think we've gone over everything. Thank you. That's it. But if you actually are missing something that you think is important to your case that you haven't had the chance to talk about yet, that is actually substantive and something that's actually relevant to helping you establish your eligibility, then yeah, then you should say, officer, actually there's something else that hasn't come up yet that I was hoping to talk about because it's relevant, I think, to my case. Can I tell you about it? So if you don't have anything to add, just say no. But if you do have something to add, then sure, go for it. Okay. All right. Look, you got to know your A number. This is technically called your alien number, or sometimes it's called your immigration number. It's on your interview notice. If you've already got your employee authorization document, it's on there as well. I think on your EAD it says USCIS number. They call it USCIS number on the EAD. In the waiting room before you go back into the asylum officer's office, sometimes this is how they call for you to say, hey, it's your turn to come back for the interview. They'll say the last 3 digits of your A number. Okay. And there's other contexts in which it's helpful for you to know your A number. So try to memorize the whole thing, but at least memorize the last 3 digits. And it's a good idea to write those last 3 digits down and take them with you on a little piece of paper in your pocket on the day of the asylum interview. Okay. All right, number 6, the power of I don't know. Actually, hold on. You guys are not seeing slide 6, are you? Let's see. I'm gonna refresh this screen share here and go back to it. Yeah, I'm not sure why the screen share is not keeping up with me. All right. Now we're on 6, right? And 7. Yeah. So you're back with me now on 7. Let's go back to 6. All right. So this is the The power of I don't know. By the way, let me know in the chats if I get ahead of you, or if I'm talking about something and I've clearly moved on to what should be the next slide, but you're still seeing the last slide. Let me know in the chat, because myself or my colleague might catch that and be able to go back and refresh this. I'm not sure why it's not keeping up with me. The power of I don't know, number 6. Look, saying I don't know or I don't remember when you're asked a question to which you don't know the answer or you don't remember the answer is powerful, okay? Do not be afraid to say this. Sometimes people think they just need to say something to give the officer what they think the officer wants to hear. That's not a good idea. That leads to problems, including perceived inconsistencies that can damage your case. Okay. So, look, if you don't know the answer to a question, just say, I don't know, or I'm not sure, I don't remember. Okay. Don't just guess. Don't make stuff up for sure. Okay. Just say, I don't know, or I don't remember. Don't be afraid to use those phrases. Okay. It actually, the officer appreciates it when you're being honest and straightforward like that. Okay. All right. So truthful versus credible. Number 7. Sometimes people tell a story or they say something and they truly believe what they're saying, but they're just wrong. They're just incorrect about what they're saying. The thing is not true. And those things are subjectively truthful, but they actually can come across as incredible, meaning not credible, like something that the officer takes as like an inconsistency in your case, or something that can hurt your case and actually lead to a denial because you're not credible. So credibility, this question of credibility, is a legal determination made by the officer. It's based on your consistency and detail and the plausibility of what you're saying. Okay, your testimony needs to be um, detailed, consistent, and plausible. Detailed and consistent and plausible. Okay, so it's not enough to just say things and believe them. You need to actually think about what you're saying and prepare to give testimony that is actually true and accurate and totally consistent with all of your other testimony and everything that's in your documents. Okay. All right. Number 8 is dress for success. You should treat this asylum interview as a formal event. You don't need to wear a tuxedo or something super formal, but definitely at a minimum business formal, okay, or what we would call professional attire, dressing clean, neat, business conservative clothing. And by doing that, you kind of signal respect for the process and respect for the officer, okay? It's your first impression that you're making with this officer. You want to get set off on the right foot, and they're making judgments about you from the second they see you. So if you come in looking sloppy, it's just not good. It's not good for your case. It can be distracting, and they can take it as a sign of disrespect. So show up in, like, I like to tell our clients, wear things like what you would wear um, to church, or to a religious ceremony, or to a wedding, or to a court hearing. Something, a little bit formal, a little bit dressy. Dress sharp, dress nice, dress neat. Okay. All right, number 9. You need to bring this often overlooked essential, a jacket. Okay, it's cold in these offices. Often at the asylum office, it's very cold. I've been in a lot of asylum offices, and it's a common thing that it's very cold. So bring a jacket, or like a little sweater or jumper or something that you can easily put on, and just keep it on the side of your chair if you don't want to wear it the whole time, because it gets cold in there. And if you're shivering or you're thinking about how cold you are, then you're not focusing. And listen, you need to be focused. You need to be laser focused on the questions the officer is asking of you, and on the testimony that you're giving on what you're saying. You don't want to be distracted by being uncomfortable by being cold. So always take a jacket to the asylum office. Okay. All right, listen, 10, you got to understand that body language matters. Okay. You should be sitting up straight, making eye contact. Don't you don't need to be making a whole bunch of hand gestures all over the place. Speak in a calm, measured way. Okay, don't be slouching or avoiding eye contact or fidgeting, this sort of thing, or speaking in a mumbled way. How you present yourself matters. I mean, it shouldn't, right? I've been talking about clothing, and now I'm talking about your body language. Those things should not matter to your asylum eligibility, but guess what? Asylum officers are human, and they are impacted psychologically, or even if it's only subconsciously, by how you come across, by how you present. Okay, so these things, they do matter. And in an asylum case, given how important this is and how hard it is to win asylum, you want every single advantage that you can get. So you do need to think about things like this. Okay. All right, let's see what questions we have in the chat. Let us know if you got questions so far in the chat about what I'm saying in this presentation or about the assignment interview. Let us know. We'll be happy to answer them. Okay. Alrighty. it looks like I lost this. Let me refresh here. All right. Your declaration as a shield. Look, if you have done a declaration or what we sometimes call a personal statement for your case, where you sort of explain your case in writing, you need to basically memorize it. Look, during your interview, the officer is going to have it up on their screen, and they're going to be comparing what you say during your interview against exactly what's on your declaration, looking for any deviations or perceived inconsistencies or anything else that just seems weird in light of, what you're saying versus what's on your declaration. So look, you need to basically memorize it. And look, I often get this question like, oh, well, but Brian, will my testimony sound rehearsed? If I memorize my declaration, and then when I'm talking, it might be clear like, oh, look, you sound rehearsed, you sound like you memorized something, your declaration. And my answer to this is, yeah, it might sound like it, but you know what? That's better than making mistakes. That's better than saying things that can be hurtful to your case. I would rather you sound rehearsed, okay? I would rather you sound like you've basically memorized your declaration, okay, than you make mistakes or have inconsistencies. So basically, yeah, you do need to memorize it, okay? All right. Number 12, describing persecution effectively. This is critical. When you're talking about past incidents of harm or threats, you've got to talk in detail about these things. You got to be specific and concrete. So you don't want to use vague statements like, "Oh, they beat me," or that they attacked me. That's meaningless to the officer. The officer needs to know what they actually did to your body. Okay, so something that's more specific, like 3 men in police uniforms punched me with closed fists 4 times in my face and twice in my stomach. It tells us how many of them there were. That sentence told you how many guys were there. 3. What was their identity? Well, we know at least they were wearing police uniforms. What did they do to you? They punched you. How? With closed fists. How many times? 4 times. Where on your body? 4 times in my face and twice in my stomach. Okay, that's in one sentence. That's a lot of detailed, specific information that helps describe a key event in someone's case. Okay, you also want to include sensory details. What you felt or heard, things like that. Okay, and then this is crucial. You want to describe the consequences or the harm that you suffered as a result of an incident. Okay, both physical harm and psychological impacts. Like in this example sentence that I've got at the bottom of the slide, it says, "My nose bled and my eyes swelled shut for 3 days. I had nightmares for weeks and I was afraid to leave my house. I lived in constant fear." That does a good job of helping the officer understand just how severe it was. And it sort of paints a picture of, yeah, this was serious. Okay. All right. Let's go on to 13. The 5-word phrase that protects you, or words to that effect. What am I talking about here? Look, human memory is imperfect, and it's really hard to recall conversations verbatim, like what someone exactly said to you, especially if it was a long time ago, maybe under very difficult, traumatic circumstances. So when the officer says, "What do they say to you?" and you're trying to tell the officer what they said, it's very helpful to say what they said, but then say, "or words to that effect," or something along the lines of, "Why do you do this?" Well, you do this to tell the officer that, look, I'm not trying to give you exactly what they said, verbatim what they said. Okay. You're saying, I'm trying to render the sense of what they said, or the gist of what they said, or at least some of what they said. Okay. And this kind of protects you because later, if the officer says, "Oh, you know what? Tell me again what they said on that occasion," and you repeat it back to the officer, but it's a few words are different, then the officer could say, "Ha, inconsistency. Earlier you said it like this, now you're saying it like that. So you're lying about this. You can't be trusted and therefore you're denied." Okay? So this, or worse to that effect, or something like, or along the lines of, kind of gives you some wiggle room, honestly. But it's only fair because you shouldn't be expected to remember exactly what someone said to you years ago, right? All right. 14, handling uncertain dates and times. Same idea here. You want to give yourself a little bit of wiggle room. If you're not 100% certain about the date on which something occurred, you want to use sort of kind of expansive language, like "it was approximately," or "I think it was around," "I believe it was around," "to the best of my memory it was around," so that you don't sort of lock yourself into an exact date that could get proved wrong. The officer may have information or you may have already set information in your materials that shows that no, it wasn't exactly that same day. It was the next day or 2 days later. Well, oh, inconsistency because you were off by a day. So give yourself some wiggle room like this, okay? But look, you do need to review these dates, any dates or timeframes that you listed in your declaration. You need to be sure about these to the extent that you possibly can. Memorize any dates or timeframes that you list in your declaration for sure, for sure. Okay. All right. We are on. We're gonna head over to number 15, the answer first method. The problem is that officers are overwhelmed with work, and they have a stressful job. It's a very difficult job. I know this because, as some of you know, I'm a former asylum officer. I've been there in this position. I've done this job. It's very hard. They want to get these interviews done with quick. They want to get from you the information that they need to assess your asylum eligibility, and they want to move on. So when they ask you a question, they want you to answer that question. So what do you need to do? Listen carefully to the question. Provide a direct, concise answer. Like actually think, what information are they asking for and how can I give it to them in a direct, concise way. Don't beat around the bush. Don't speak in circles, or in anything other than direct, clear language. Okay. But then look, after you've given them the answer to their question, it's okay, and sometimes it's helpful to add a bit more detail or a bit more context. So for example, if the officer says, how many times were you attacked? An answer could be 4 times, but I was also threatened on many other occasions. This is helpful and good. This is a good answer because, first of all, I started by giving the answer 4 times. Short, sweet, to the point, 4 times. But look, the officer asked me about attacks, and so I gave him that answer, but I want him to know that it wasn't just attacks, it was also threats that I faced. That's important to my asylum case. So I'm going to add that. It's relevant because it's similar to what he asked, right? It's relevant. It's okay to add that extra sentence. And it's helpful to your case because you want them to know, oh, wait, but there's other things we need to talk about. There were threats as well. Okay. All right. We need to talk about number 16, adapting to the officer's note taking. You got to, first of all, understand that when you're at the asylum interview, the officer is going to be typing the entire time. Okay. They're taking notes, not verbatim notes, but they're basically trying to capture pretty much everything they say and everything you say. So they're constantly going to be telling you, oh, wait, hold on. 1 second. I need you to pause and wait so I can catch up with my typing. Okay. Because it's taking me, I'm slower at typing than you are at talking. So pause, hold up, wait. What can you do in response? Try to speak in short, clear sentences. And every 2 or 3 sentences, like just stop and pause, and you'll see the officer look down and be typing. And when they look back up at you, then you start talking again. Okay. It's annoying, but it's helpful. The officer will really appreciate it if you can do that courtesy for them. Okay. They'll be like, oh, this person gets it. They know what they're supposed to be doing in this interview, and they're making my job easier. And we want to take every opportunity that we can to make the asylum officer's life as easy as possible. Okay. All right, 17. We're on number 17. We're talking about 50 insider perspectives on how to have a great asylum interview. And these are informed by my 11 years working for the government's 2 main agencies for refugee and asylum matters, including as an asylum officer at USCIS. 17, transforming your story into legal testimony. So look, these are the big three. These are the 3 things the officer cares about. These are the main things they're going to spend most of their time asking you questions about. Over on the left, we've got severity of past harm. So they start with this. They start with asking you questions about whether you've been harmed in the past, and if so, they need details to understand, was the harm sufficiently severe to rise to the level of persecution. Okay. And then they're going to look to the future and ask you about whether you're afraid of being harmed in the future. If so, why? What is there that indicates that you're at risk? Okay. What can we point to as evidence that, yeah, you're at real risk of grave harm? And then the third thing is nexus to a protected ground. They need to know, is the harm at issue, the persecution, motivated, at least in significant part, by the fact that you, asylum seeker, possess one of the 5 protected characteristics under U.S. asylum law. Those are your race, religion, nationality, political opinion, and something called membership in a particular social group. Okay. Look, when you're answering questions, answer the question directly, like we just discussed, right? But then, if you can add something that is still relevant to what was asked, that gets to one of these 3 issues that has to do with the severity of the past harm, the likelihood of future harm, or the motive behind the persecution, it makes sense to add one of those in the context of where you are in the conversation or what you were just asked, then do that. These are the things, these are the big three things the officer wants to know about. So anytime that you have an opportunity to fit it naturally into the conversation, to address one of these things and to provide information that helps the officer understand how these relate to your case, take the opportunity to do that. This slide, look, this is kind of the core, number 17 here, is kind of the core of the whole interview. These are the three things the officer cares about the most by far, okay? These are what most of the questions are going to be about. All right, number 18. This is the three-part mental checklist, okay? Similar to what we talked about earlier, but I want to focus on the fact that you need to listen and first ask yourself, do I understand the question? If there's any doubt in your mind, okay, any doubt in your mind that you could about whether you fully understand, if you might be mistaken or you're not sure what they're trying to get at, you need to ask, okay? Don't assume that you know, don't guess. If there's any doubt, ask to clarify. Say, officer, I'm not sure I understood. Could you clarify? Or officer, I didn't understand. Could you ask the question in a different way? Okay. It's super important that you communicate clearly and effectively, and you have to understand the question to do that. Okay. Now, after you're positive that you understand, then you answer. Remember, direct, concise answer. And then third, we're going to add any brief or relevant detail, especially around these three big issues that we just went over in detail about past harm, reasons that you're afraid that make it likely you're going to be harmed in the future, and then the nexus requirement, which basically means the motive. Like, what is it that is motivating the bad guys to want to harm you? Okay. All right, so we're at 18 and then 19. This is called you're summing up your case in one powerful statement. So often at the beginning of the interview, or at the beginning of the substantive question and answers portion of the interview, the officer says something like, so why are you applying for asylum? Or why do you fear returning to your country? Or why did you flee your country? What they want from you here is basically a summary of your case. And if you can do that in one sentence or two at the most, they're going to appreciate this. It's going to kind of give them a roadmap of where to take the questioning from there. And it's going to make you look like a well-organized, prepared, serious asylum applicant. It's going to make you look really good, okay? So the things that you want to address in this one sentence summary of your case is, what type of harm do you fear? Okay, exactly what is it that you fear will happen to you? Who will do it? Who are you afraid of? Number three is, what's the motive, or on what protected ground that you possess will the persecution be based or motivated by? Okay, but also actually there's a fourth thing here, is what can we point to that shows that, yeah, they actually do want to harm you? Okay, so if you look at the bottom of the slide, there's an example that says, I fear the secret police will unjustly imprison or murder me if I return to my country, because I'm an active member of an opposition group whose members the police have been murdering, and they told me the next time they see me, they'll put me away forever. So if you go back and look at that carefully, I'm addressing all four of those things in that one sentence. Now the officer understands the basis of the case, and it's going to make you look good if you can summarize like this, okay? All right, so number 20, avoiding the trap question. There is a trick question that gets asked at most asylum interviews near the end. Usually it's in the bar section or the security section. And they say something like, actually, no, sorry, let me back that up. That's a different point. This one's a different trick question. There are several forms of trick questions that you might get. This one is when you're describing something, like an incident of harm or a threat, and the officer says to you, well, did they say anything else? What else did they say? What else did they say? Or maybe, okay, what happened? Did they do anything else? Is there anything else they did you haven't told me about? And then if you say, nope, nothing more, that's it, then later they might come back to that same question or to that same incident and ask you questions about it. And if previously you said, okay, on the day of the incident, they said A, B, and C, but then later in the interview, your asylum interview, the officer says, hey, tell me again what they said during that incident. And you go, oh yeah, they said A, B, C, and D. And the officer goes, oh, gotcha. Earlier you said it was just A, B, C. Now you're saying it's A, B, C, D. There's an inconsistency here. Therefore, you're not credible. Therefore, they're going to use that against you to try to deny your case. So you can use language like kind of qualifying language like, well, that's all that I can recall at this moment, or they said a lot of things, and what I told you so far is all that I can remember right now. To sort of leave open that, look, I'm not telling you this is the exhaustive beginning to end list of everything they said or did, but rather, look, this is what I can remember right now. And it sort of leaves you some more wiggle room, kind of like a couple of examples that we discussed earlier of, framing your answers in a way that you're trying to show that you're not being 100% definitive, and you're just explaining and recounting things to the best of your memory. That's a way to do this around this question of what else do they say or what else happened. Okay. All right. Let us go to 21. Handling hostile officers. So understand this. Some officers are jerks, okay, or at least very rude. Some of them are jerks. Some of them are just kind of rude or very rude. Some of them are hostile, okay. Sometimes that's just their personality. Sometimes I think it's them just sort of trying to test you and see what you'll do in response and if you'll get rattled, so they can sort of pick at you and cross-examine you in a way that sort of breaks you down, honestly. So look, you just got to remain calm and professional. Don't take the bait, okay? Don't react. Don't challenge them. Don't let them see that it's rattling you. Try to just forget about it, okay? Listen carefully and try to provide a direct, concise answer, okay? When they ask you questions, even if they're being rude, okay? Look, if you start to feel uncomfortable or upset, take a break. Ask the officer, hey, officer, can we take a quick break? And you can go to the bathroom and compose yourself. You can go get a drink of water. You can go take a deep breath, okay? Now, look, if the officer crosses the line and gets actually out of line, it gets truly hostile or truly inappropriate, then you should say, officer, this is not going the way that it should. I want to talk with your supervisor. And go talk with the supervisor and say, supervisor, I want to stop the interview today and schedule a new interview with a new asylum officer and explain why. Okay, give examples of what the officer did that was inappropriate, and that's better, I think, than continuing with an officer who's being a total jerk or inappropriate. Okay, all right. 22. We're going to talk about the credibility confrontation. What is this? A credibility confrontation is when the officer points something out to you that they think is inconsistent in your case, and therefore it goes to your credibility. And they'll say something like, it sounds like this, a credibility confrontation. Like, okay, earlier you said that there were 3 attackers, but in your declaration, you said that there were 4. Can you explain this difference and why in one place you told us 3, but in another place you told us 4? Can you explain this? So they point out, the seemingly inconsistent things, and then they give you a chance to try to explain it. Because if you can explain it, if there's like an actual reasonable explanation for why there is this inconsistency or why it looks to be an inconsistent thing, then they can't use it against you, okay? So look, if this happens to you, just listen carefully, take a moment to think about it, and then address it directly and honestly, okay? If you just misspoke, say I just misspoke. And if there is an explanation though beyond that, then give the explanation. Try to be clear and concise, but just do your best to explain it. That's all that you can do, right? Okay, don't get hostile. Don't let it get you nervous. It happens all the time. It is still possible to win, even when these credibility confrontations happen. Even when they happen multiple times in an interview, sometimes it's possible to still win, okay? All right, 23, moving beyond yes and no answers. So some questions that you get asked are fine to answer with a yes or no. But if you do that for every single question that can be answered with a yes or no without elaborating at all ever, it feels a little weird. It's a little uncomfortable for the officer, and they may start to think that you're like trying to sort of be evasive or just not being very cooperative, or at least not very helpful, okay? So a better approach, I think, is say yes or no first, but then you can add or clarify a little bit and give a little more context if necessary. So an example would be, have you ever been charged with the crime? And you're thinking, okay, well, no, I've never technically been charged with a crime, but I had this thing that was kind of similar, and I don't think I was technically charged, but I had this thing with the police once. I should probably talk about that, because he's basically asking me, or she's basically asking me something that's similar or maybe the same. I'm not sure. So an answer could be, well, no, I wasn't actually charged with a crime, but I was detained by the police overnight on one occasion. Okay. So you're saying no, you're answering the question directly, but then you're giving a little more information that the officer probably is going to think is helpful and relevant. Okay. All right. Number 24, correcting your own mistakes. So if you realize during the interview that you made a mistake or that you said something wrong, you should own up to it and tell the officer, excuse me, officer, I think I made a mistake in something I said earlier. Can I correct it now? It's much better that you be forthcoming about this than the officer confronting you with it in one of these credibility confrontations that we just discussed. Okay. So if you realize during the interview that you made a mistake, that you said something wrong, just step up and ask to explain it, indicate what it was, and explain why it happened. Okay. All right. 25. The is proving the persecutor's motive. All right. Because remember, it's not to win asylum, it's not enough just to show that you've been persecuted or that you're at risk of being persecuted. Rather, you also have to convince the officer that the persecution is motivated, at least in significant part, by the fact that you, asylum seeker, possess one of the 5 protected characteristics under U.S. asylum law: your race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group. Now, how do you do this? How do you show the officer what's motivating the persecution? Well, sometimes there's very explicit direct evidence, like the persecutors actually say, I hate you because you're a member of the opposition political party, or I hate that you're a, whatever religion adherent you are. Sometimes it's obvious, right? And you should point to those things that clearly show, look, it's my religion, or look, it's my political opinion. But sometimes the persecutors don't say that, right? And you have to use circumstantial evidence like timing, context, or patterns that help us show, like, okay, that's probably the reason. It makes sense based on this information, based on this context. It makes sense that, the reason they've decided to target me is my political opinion, is my nationality, etc. Okay. So direct evidence is great and ideal when you've got it. That's like them saying it explicitly, but often, in addition to that, but often sometimes on its own, we just have to rely on circumstantial evidence. So you need to marshal and use all of the facts and circumstances possible that exist to show the officer, yeah, that's the reason why. Okay, that's the reason they came after me. Okay, so look, we are at the halfway point. We've gotten through 25 of the 50 points that I want to make with you. The insider perspectives about winning your asylum case by having a great asylum interview. All right, so let me ask you, halfway through this training, let me ask you in the chat, has anyone seen anything that you think would be is helpful? Maybe something that you didn't know that surprised you as a tip that you hadn't thought of yet? Or maybe it was good for you to be reminded about something that you haven't thought about in a while. Let me know in the comments over on YouTube and Facebook. Is there anything in here that so far that you think is helpful or maybe surprising? What do we got? Let me know in the comments. Let me know in the chat. I'm going to check it in a minute, okay? For anyone who just joined us or has joined us in the last few minutes, we're in the middle of a special asylum interview training called 50 Insider Perspectives to Ace Your Asylum Interview. Okay, 50 tips and perspectives that I developed during my 11 years working for the government's two main agencies for refugee and asylum matters. Okay, and now as an asylum lawyer, I love sharing these insights, these perspectives with people to give them every advantage that they can get to maximize their chances for success to win their case. Because it's hard, guys. Approval rates are low, and I think they're only going to get lower with every passing month. They're only going to get lower during the rest of the Trump administration. Better than Bitcoin, says Kent Bummer about in the chat on YouTube about this this training, about this. That's awesome. He said this is gold, better than Bitcoin. That's awesome. I'm laughing too. I'm like crying, Kent. Rue says it was good that you told us about the importance of clarifying that a point may have been misconstrued. Pranati said it sounds like Pranati was surprised to hear about sort of the casual chat before the actual start of the interview. Yeah, the casual chat is they're judging you. They're thinking about what you're saying and they can use it against you. Habtamu on YouTube says very helpful as usual. Brian, great class, says Kevin Yang. Thanks, Kevin, and thanks Habtamu. I appreciate you guys being here. Pernati says, yes, very helpful. Yeah, Joffrey, there's a question about doing a live about immigration courts. I might, but look, Joffrey, almost all of this stuff is relevant to immigration court. Just replace the word asylum officer with immigration judge, and almost all of this stuff is relevant. Okay, it's almost the exact same concepts. So it's definitely relevant. Okay, Tim Brand says good material. I'm taking notes. Thank you, thank you. Nice. All right. So look, let's go back. We're gonna get back to the training, and actually this next one, I want to let you know about a special offer. If you've been thinking about talking with an asylum lawyer to try to get help with your case, or to see if they might be in a position to help you, now is the time to do that. I'm going to let you do that for $1. Usually we charge $97 for a consultation. Our consultations are pretty intensive. They're not a 10 to 15 minute chat. Okay. They're 50 minutes, 50, almost an hour. We go deep. We need to get to know you. We want to get to know your case, your circumstances, the facts of your case and your situation, so that we can tell you whether we think we're in a position to help you. And if we think that we are, we're going to explain to you in significant detail how we will do that, like what the concrete steps that we are going to take are to give you the best possible chance to win your case. Okay, so we normally it's a lot of work, and there's a lot of demand for these, so we normally charge $97. But because you're here, because you're special, and because you're serious about this, and I believe that by virtue of the fact that you're still here halfway through this training, um, if you want to talk with us, you can do it for $1. All right. Go to winasylum.com, winasylum.com, and it's going to show you, oh, it costs $97. But once you get to the page where you actually pay and you put your credit card information in, there's a little box that says like discount code, and you put the number one in there for $1. Like just put one, like type the number on your keyboard that is one, tap that one time to put one in that box. And then you click like enter, and it'll apply the discount, and then the total that you have to end up paying then is $1. So look, it looks like this. If you go to winasylum.com, and the coupon misspelled, the coupon code is one, just one, like that. So it's over here on the right where it says order summary, package, gift, or coupon code. You enter the code right there, and then you hit like enter, and then it will change. Instead of saying subtotal $97, it'll say subtotal $1. Okay, so this only lasts until the end of the day on Sunday. So if you want to schedule a consultation with us, you got to go do this. Excuse me. If you want to benefit from this, discount of $96, then you need to go schedule this by the end of the day on Monday. And by the way, this is not available if you call by phone. This discount. If you call by phone, our receptionists are going to be like, I don't know what you're talking about. It's $97. Sorry, because this discount is only available for people who book online using this coupon code one, and you got to do that at latest on Sunday. Okay, but don't wait. Go right now. You can open up another tab while I continue the training, and just go to winasylum.com, winasylum.com, and it takes like 2 minutes to get it set up. Put the coupon code of one in there, and hit enter, and then finish it and get this scheduled now. Okay, all right. winasylum.com. The coupon code is one. Let's continue with our asylum interview training. We are at 26, right? All right. Answering the why question. So look, this is getting back to something I started to talk about a little bit earlier, but we need to say more about it here. This thing called nexus. This is really like the heart and soul of many asylum claims. It's the crucial aspect that your case falls or rises on. Officers are over and over and over again during your interview going to ask questions like, well, why? Or why do you think they targeted you? Why did they say that? Why would they want to do that to you? What would motivate them to do that? What is it about you in particular that made them want to target you for harm? So they're getting at nexus. They're trying to understand what is it that caused the persecution, or that would cause the persecution, and is it related to one of the 5 protected characteristics in the U.S. asylum law? So, a weak answer is, I don't know, or they came after me because they don't like me. You need to think long and hard before your interview about what facts or circumstances you can point to that show this motive, that show what it was that cause them to come after you and help the officer see that, yeah, it was your race, it was your religion, or your nationality, your political opinion. Okay. So examples of stronger answers over on the right, um, you know, would be they targeted me because of my articles criticizing the government, which they explicitly referenced during the attack. So there's direct evidence of it. Um, they attacked me because of my religious conversion, which is forbidden in my community, which is something they harassed me about constantly. The fact that, the person was converting. So you want to find opportunities to give the officer information that gets to this question of nexus, this why are the persecutors coming after you? Okay. All right. The 10% chance rule. This is good news. Some people think, oh, I can't win my case because I have to convince the officer 100% that I'm going to be persecuted in the future. That's not the standard. The officer isn't looking to see whether there's 100% or even 90% chance that you're going to be persecuted. It's actually 10%. Okay. Because that's what the Supreme Court has said, is basically to show that you have a well-founded fear of persecution, you got to show that it's about 10% likelihood that you're going to be gravely harmed or persecuted in the future. Okay. So, look, you want to present an overwhelming case for yes, it's obvious, officer. It's crystal clear that I'm at risk. But I included this point just so that you would hopefully take heart and know that you don't have to show that it's 100% likelihood. Rather, just 10% should be enough. Okay. So it's not even the 51% sort of more likely than not. It's just really 10%. But look, you should go out of your way to try to create the strongest impression possible that, yeah, you're at real risk. Okay. All right. We need to talk about this when family members suffering matters. We're at 28 because a lot of people in their interviews want to try to force into the conversation a lot of discussion about their family members, about oh, and then this happened to my mom and this happened to my brother. Well, honestly, usually that's not relevant. The general rule is that harm to family members really is not relevant to your case. It's not considered harm or persecution of you for purposes of the asylum eligibility analysis. Now, one critical exception is, or two, really a couple of critical exceptions are, if the persecutor harms a family member for the purpose of punishing you, then that can be harm against you for purposes of persecution for asylum purposes. Sometimes bad guys will go and target the child of a parent because they know, ooh, a good way to make the parent suffer and to really punish them would be to harm their child, because every parent loves, parents care about their children and don't want to see them get hurt. So that could be considered persecution of you. Or if it's evidence of sort of a pattern that indicates that you're probably going to be persecuted in the future because your family members are similarly situated to you, and that it makes sense that because they went after them, they're probably going to go after you too. That's relevant as well. But I don't want you to go in there thinking, oh, if I just explain what happened to my family member, I'll win my case, because usually that's not really relevant to you establishing that you have a well-founded fear of persecution. You want to focus on you. The focus is on you. Okay. All right. We're going to go to 29, which is addressing internal relocation. So look, the thing here is that if the persecutor in your case is someone who works for the government, then this is pretty easy. This issue of showing that there's no place that you can go in your country where you could be safe by just relocating to another big city or just anywhere else in your country where you'd be safe. But even if the government is the persecutor, like it's the police or the military or the intelligence services, you're still going to get questions about, okay, well, could you just go somewhere else and be safe? Why not just go to this other place? How would they know you're there? How would they find you there? You get a lot of those questions where the persecutor is a private actor, meaning there's someone who does not work for the government. Okay. So you need to think ahead of time in your interview about, well, could I be safe? And if not, why not? And be ready to explain that, why you couldn't be safe. Also, though, you need to be ready to explain why it wouldn't be reasonable to expect you to move somewhere else. For example, do you or a family member need medical care that's only available in the capital where the bad guys are? Or, do your children have special educational needs that can't be met in other places? So those kinds of things, hardship to you and your family, are considered for purposes of this specific question about internal relocation. I just said a second ago that harm and hardship to family usually isn't relevant to your case. It is relevant for this issue about addressing like the reasonableness of internal relocation, whether it would be reasonable to expect you to avoid persecution, but just going somewhere else in your country. Okay. Alrighty, 30, the misrepresentation trap. Now, this is another trick question. At the end of the interview, in the security and bar questions section, the officer often asks a question like this: have you ever lied or misrepresented anything in writing or orally to a U.S. immigration officer ever about anything? And the asylum seeker usually is thinking about their asylum case. They're thinking, no, man, I haven't lied. Everything I've said has been honest. My application was true. My declaration was honest. Everything I've said today is true. So no, I have not. No. And then the asylum officer says, well, interesting, because I have here on my screen a copy of your visa application that you submitted to come to the United States. And it says that you intended to come temporarily for about 2 weeks to go on vacation to Disneyland. Yet in your interview today, you told me that, when that you had decided, 5 months before you left your country that you needed to flee and you were in danger and you had to get out of there to save your life. Well, you submitted your asylum application after that. Excuse me, your visa application after that. So that makes me think that you lied in your visa application, and you lied at your visa interview when you told the visa officer, oh, 2 weeks vacation Disney World, because you knew at that time that you were fleeing and you intended to seek asylum and stay here permanently. Therefore, you lied in your visa materials and application and interview, and then you lied to me today about it because I asked you today whether you'd ever lied. So basically, today in your interview, you lied about never having lied. That's 2 lies. That's how you get in trouble. That's a problem, okay? The fact that you lied or were not forthcoming about your visa stuff, or even at the airport at the US when you got to the US and they said, what's the purpose of your travel? And you said tourism, even if you intended to apply for asylum, those lies don't hurt you in your asylum application. That's not held against you. It's lying about it, or at least having it look like you're lying about it during the asylum interview, that gets you. Okay, that's what they can really hold against you and use as in support of a decision to deny your case. Okay, so actually, let me go back to that and say that, you know, you need to think back. Okay, did I misrepresent myself in my visa materials? If so, be ready to explain that and just explain why you did it, and say yes. Okay, so just think about that whole issue of, have I ever misrepresented anything to an immigration officer, and be consciously thinking about, your visa situation and your entry to the U.S. When you came to the airport. Okay. All right, we are at number 31. Oh, nice. Let me just say, Gateau à Chocolat says consultation booked. Nice. Kevin Young gave us a thumbs up and a heart. Afia Aldafa gave a 1, because that's what the code is to get a heavily discounted asylum strategy session with one of our asylum professionals, only for people that are watching this training, and then book this consultation by the end of the day on Sunday. You have to book. You don't have to do the consultation by the end of Sunday. You have to book it by the end of the day on Sunday, using this coupon code of 1, the number 1. Just put the number 1 in the coupon code box, and you can get this consultation with us, one of our asylum professionals, for just $1. Usually it's $97. So limited time offer to get the consultation for $1. Usually it's $97. You do that at winasylum.com. 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 I booked 2. I'm happy, says Tim Bond. Awesome. Paul says, thank you. Consultation booked for August 15. Awesome. So we've had, I think, 4, maybe 5 people, can't quite tell for sure, so far, since I just asked that 30 seconds ago, who said that they booked. Yeah, take advantage of this limited time opportunity to get a consultation with one of our asylum professionals for $1 at winasylum.com. WINASYLUM.com. Back to the presentation. We're on 31, ensuring accurate interpretation. This is really just for people that are going to be using a language other than English. By the way, I know you're watching this in English, so you're probably thinking, well, yeah, I'm going to use English, but look, you need to think about that. If you're not completely comfortable and completely fluent in English, don't do English. Don't do English. use interpretation, use your native language. It's much better to do that than to make mistakes in English or to be nervous in English or to have a hard time expressing yourself. It's much better to use interpretation. If you use interpretation, you got to ensure that it's accurate. Now, this, of course, is only really applicable to people who at least speak some English, such that they might hear interpretation from their interpreter that is not accurate. This doesn't help, obviously. This doesn't apply to people if you don't speak any English or virtually none. But if you speak enough to be like, wait, I caught some of that, and I think there might be an error there, you need to be listening for that, because interpretation is critical. If you hear an interpretation mistake, you got to jump in and say, oh, excuse me, officer, I think there might have been a mistake in the interpretation or some miscommunication. Could we restate that? Could we try that again? Could I say that again? Because if your interpreter says something that is inaccurate or that doesn't line up with what you're saying, that can be taken as an inconsistency. Remember, the officer is thinking about what the interpreter says, not what you're saying in your native language. What counts for purposes of like the record in the asylum office is the interpretation, not what you're saying in your native language. So you want to help ensure the interpretation is accurate. Okay. All right. 32, the firm resettlement bar. Look, after you left your country, if you were physically present in a third country, another country, before coming to the United States, you're going to get a lot of questions about this, about what your immigration status was there, and if it was permanent residency or something that looks or feels like it might have been permanent residency, or if you had a so-called offer for permanent residency, then you might be subject to what's called the firm resettlement bar, which says that you can't get asylum here in the United States because you were firmly resettled in a third country. So basically, you should have just stayed there is sort of what the thinking behind this is, okay? Why should we take you in here in America when you could have just stayed somewhere else and been safe? So tough luck. Now, look, if you were in another country, you need to be ready for these questions, okay, about what your immigration status was. And then also, why you couldn't stay there permanently. And also, if you faced persecution there or significant hardship, you need to be ready to talk about that too, okay? Because that can be an exception to the firm resettlement bar if it does in fact apply to you. All right. So just be aware of that and ready to answer those questions. All right. We're at 33, the 1-year filing deadline. This is applicable. This one's important for people that apply for asylum after their first year in the United States, right? You know that most people know that normally you got to file in your first year to get asylum. If you don't, you're barred by the 1-year filing deadline unless you qualify for one of the exceptions. There's 2 categories of exceptions, what they call the changed circumstances exception and what they call the extraordinary circumstances exception. Now, look, you can see on the slide, there's some information about these, but these are complicated, okay? If you applied for asylum after your first year in the United States, I urge you to talk with an asylum lawyer about this to try to get support, because this is a tricky area of law. But look, the good news is a lot of people do qualify for one of the exceptions. So you shouldn't think, oh, I'm definitely going to lose because I filed after 1 year. No, you might well qualify, but it's tricky. So you should talk with an asylum lawyer about this, okay? Thank you for the comment over on YouTube. Ruse says, thank you for the special offer. Have booked for a training session tomorrow. This is pure gold. Truly appreciate you, Mr. Brian Rue. Our pleasure. It's our pleasure. Thank you. It's my pleasure. Thank you. And I'm glad that you took advantage of the opportunity and that you booked a training session. It's not a training session, Rue, that you're going to do. It's a consultation, okay, where we're going to get to understand you and your case, and tell you if we think we're in a position to help you, and if so, we're going to explain exactly how we would do that, okay? Kevin Yang says, I'll book after your presentation. You don't have to wait, Kevin. Go book now. You can do both at the same time. It's super easy and quick. I would say do it now. Thank you though. That's awesome. Afia Alfalfa says I booked. Awesome. Winasylum.com, WINASYUM.com is where you can schedule this consultation. Let's continue with our presentation. 34. Who helped you with your application? Look, you're going to get this question. Remember I said earlier that one of the phases is the review of your asylum application, where they go over it with you. Kind of at the end of that session, they're going to say, did anyone help you with your application? And they're looking for fraud, and they're looking for something called the unauthorized practice of law, which is like where form preparers basically act like lawyers, do the job of a lawyer that they're not supposed to do. Um, and yeah, that's how that works. Okay. So it's kind of scary because it sounds like they're accusatory, like they're, you know, asking you to rat someone out. Also, like, tell me who it was. Tell me who that person was that helped you. You should be honest. You should try to answer honestly. If you got help, I mean, I'm talking about if you got help from someone who either is not a lawyer or whose name does not appear on the application form as a someone who helped you prepare, you should still be open and honest about it, even though it implicates someone in something they shouldn't have been doing. Okay, you're you need to be open and honest and transparent in everything you do at the asylum interview, in your whole entire asylum case, in all of your immigration case or cases. Okay, honesty is the best policy. Okay, but get ready for this question: who helped you with your application? And then they're probably going to ask you, how did they help you? What did they do exactly to help you? Okay, and they're also going to ask you, if you submitted a declaration, who helped you with your declaration? How did they help you? What did they do to help you? Okay, you're going to get questions like that, so you need to think ahead of time about just how to answer them. I mean, answer with the truth, but think ahead of time of what the answer is, so that you're not caught off guard and flustered by these questions. Okay. I mean, that goes for everything, right? Everything is that you're going to get is something that you should be answering truthfully, honestly, openly. Um, it's just that, it's just that we sometimes forget these details. And um, when we are asked these questions in the context of a stressful environment, like the asylum interview, can be very stressful, then it's hard sometimes to remember the, on the spot. So that's why I'm telling you all of this stuff now. It's stuff that you should be thinking about ahead of time when you're cool, calm, and collected, and you can take the time to process these questions and think carefully about your answers and how to deal with them. Okay. All right. Let's continue. We're at 35. Timing your evidence or supplemental filing submission. All right. So look, often people will not submit all the documents they want to submit for their case up front when they file, but rather they'll wait and submit things later, like a declaration, evidence, country conditions information. If you have a lawyer, hopefully a legal brief. Uh, you don't have to submit that all when you apply. You can do it later. And sometimes though, people will wait until the last minute and say, "Oh, Brian, can I do it on the, like the day before or the same day of my interview? Can I just take it in with me, all my supplemental stuff that I want the officer to consider?" You shouldn't take it on the same day. You should try to do it 2 weeks. I would say really, usually 1 week is fine. Honestly, usually a few days even is fine. But to be safe, the best practice would be 2 weeks. Okay. Um, if you take if you take things on the same day and you say, "I want you to consider this," there's a good chance the officer will say, "Well, okay, if you want me to consider it, we're going to have to reschedule the interview. We're going to have to pause, and you're going to have to go home, and we're going to have to send you a letter later that says it's been rescheduled because I need time to review this stuff." Okay. And that's usually not good. In general, I believe the sooner you get your asylum interview and your decision, the better your chances for success. I think it's ideal to not reschedule. So that you don't have to run that risk, try to submit any supplemental evidence or documents at least a week ahead of time, ideally two. Okay. All right. Listen, the officer doesn't care about. Let me rephrase that. They don't want to hear from you about your country's socio-geopolitical history and context. We're at 36. Avoid country history lectures. Very often, I saw this all the time when I was an asylum officer. Very often, people want to come in and they want to give a lot of context and just sort of set the stage so the officer understands what's going on in the country, and how it might be relevant to their case. I get that. That makes sense that you would want to do that, but it's not helpful. The officer doesn't want to hear that from you. First of all, if you have a lawyer, I hope your lawyer is doing this through their legal filing, through their legal brief, and then the country conditions information that they cite to in the brief, and they analyze in the brief, and they supply the copies of the actual underlying articles and reports behind the brief. That's your lawyer's job. Okay. Even if you don't have a lawyer, though, you should not try to focus on this stuff at your interview. Okay. Only talk about context and country conditions to the extent that it's absolutely necessary to understand key aspects of your case. And then even then, be as brief as possible. The officer's not interested in hearing about that from you. They want to hear about you. They want to hear about your circumstances. They want to hear about what it is that makes you in particular at risk, or what has happened to you. Okay. So you focus on you at the interview. The documents on country conditions that hopefully your lawyer has submitted tell that part of the story, and they do that part of the job in your case. Your story at the interview is focus on you. Don't try to redirect the conversation to all this other stuff, okay? All right, we're at 37. This is, emotional grounding techniques. Look, these interviews can get really difficult. They can be very um, stressful, very hard. You might become very emotional talking about traumatic things that have happened to you. I said earlier that a good thing to do when the officer is, being rude is to take a break. You can take a break here too. Just if you start to feel emotional or overwhelmed, ask for a break. Go get a drink of water, relax, okay? Also, you can even try things like just sort of emotional grounding techniques, like feel your feet on the ground, press firmly to the ground. Take a few slow, deep breaths, okay? And you can especially do those things as well on a break. If you get a 5-minute break, go to the bathroom, get a drink of water, sit in the waiting room, and do controlled breathing. Do box breaths for 5 minutes to just sort of regain your composure. This stuff will help you to remain in control and to do a good job then with your testimony. Okay. All right. But we're at 38. Before I jump to 38, I want to ask for all of you guys on YouTube, what do you think? The second half so far, tips number 26 to 38. Anything interesting or surprising that you've learned? Let me know if there's something that surprised you of what we've learned in the second half so far of this presentation. We've got 12 more to go, or actually 13, I guess. So let me know though the second half of the training. I'm curious to see in the chat, in the comments, what questions you have about any of this, or also let me know what has surprised you, or what did you find interesting so far about the second half of this presentation. I want to know. Let me know. Let me know, guys. Come on, YouTube. Let me know. All right, I'm going to keep going while you guys do that. 38. Memory problems questions. So near the beginning of the interview, the officer usually asks something like, hey, do you have any like medical conditions? Are you taking any medication? Are there any any memory problems that might affect your ability to understand or answer my questions, or that, affect your ability to testify possibly? Now, basically what they're doing with this is when you say no, they're trying to sort of preempt you so that you can then not later, you can't come back and be like, oh, but I have memory problems. That's why I made those inconsistent statements. That's why I couldn't answer any of the questions that I kept saying, I don't know, I remember. Um, they don't want you to sort of have an excuse or reason for things they want to hold against you and use as an excuse to deny you. So I want you to know about this question, but also I just want you to know that the answer is no, unless you really do have like a medical professional who has diagnosed you with an actual problem like this. But if you just have like a bad memory, or you think you have a bad memory, I don't think it's really helpful probably to say that. Um, it just sort of makes you look like, okay, well then I can't trust anything this person says because they have a bad memory. So just be aware of this and be ready to answer this question. All right. 39. We are at missing original documents. Yeah, nice. Nice. Cool. So missing original documents. The officer may say, hey, I saw that you submitted some evidence in support of your case. Do you have those originals with you? Like, you sent a scan, PDF of a letter that you said that you received in the mail. Well, what about the actual physical letter that you received with the threats on it? Do you have that with you? Can I see it? They want to probe this. They want to see if it's authentic, and seeing the originals underlying it can help them understand, can help them assess whether it's an authentic document or not, or fake. And so they'll ask sometimes, not always, but sometimes they'll ask to see the originals of these things. So you should take them with you if you have them. If you don't have them, then look, try to just remain calm and explain why you don't. Okay. It's often very reasonable why you wouldn't have originals. Like, sometimes there is no original, but to the extent that there is an original version of a document you submitted electronically, then just think about what the reason was and explain that. Okay. So, asylum seekers sometimes have to flee their country quickly and they don't have time to gather a bunch of documents. So that's reasonable. Maybe it is there at your house, but you just can't get it for some reason, or maybe your family members are not willing to go to the government and ask for a copy of that police report you filed because they don't want to have contact with the government because it's dangerous. Whatever the reason is, think ahead of time, about why you don't have the originals of any documents that you submitted, and be ready to explain that. Okay. All right, we're at number 40. Paul says everything is helpful. Tim Bond says, "Can I say that I'm a bit nervous? Would it help me if I forgot something?" Look, yeah, it's normal to be nervous, Tim. People are nervous of this, about this sort of thing because it's a big deal and it's hard. But if you're serious about winning your asylum case and you do things like this like this training you're watching now, the more contact you have with this, the more familiarity you have with this, the more you know about the process, the more confidence that you're going to get, Tim. And I got to tell you, if you want to do the thing that I think can give you the most confidence possible, then you should think about doing a practice interview with us. We have this new service that we're offering actually called the mock asylum interview experience. Okay. Where we're going to do a mock interview, a full scale practice interview with you. It's actually 2 different sessions. We do a 2-hour session with an asylum lawyer that is a full scale mock interview. And then later, a day or 2 or 3 later, we do a debrief session of 30 minutes where we give you feedback and all of our best tips, basically. That, Tim, is the best way to get confidence because you will know what it feels like. You feel like you've been there, you've done that. You feel like you know what kind of questions you're going to get in your particular case because you've been through this process. You know what it feels like to be in this situation. You know what the different procedures are for the day. All of that, Tim, and then getting practice with it and getting feedback from an asylum lawyer, that's going to give you confidence to help you feel less nervous on the day of your interview. Okay. We offer this, what's called the mock asylum interview experience, as a standalone service, which means you don't have to hire us to be your lawyer for the whole thing to get this service from us. We understand that sometimes hiring a law firm like ours, that tends to charge a little bit more than most law firms, we understand that it's not possible for everyone, okay, because of resource constraints. Or maybe for some people, there's not time before their interview to hire us for like the full representation. The next best thing that you can do, everyone, the next best thing you can do to hiring us for your full case is to do this mock asylum interview experience, because the interview is the most important part of your case. The preparation is the most important thing that you can do within your control, something that's in your control, to maximize your chances for success. The practice and the mock interview experience is the best thing that you can do. And we offer this right now as a standalone service for just $3,000, which is way less than it costs to hire us for like the full representation, right? So if you want to learn about this mock interview experience, you got to do a consultation with us first, okay? That's the first step. We don't go straight to the mock interview experience. You got to mock assignment interview experience. You got to do a consultation with us. Lucky for you, everyone who's watching this live right now, who's watching it live, not the recording, we're offering consultations for $1 right now. Okay, normally it's $97, but because you're watching this, because you're here, because you're special, I'm giving you this opportunity to book a consultation with us for just $1. To do that, go to winasylum.com. That's WINASYLUM.com, and use that use the promo code in the discount box, the discount code, the number 1. Put the number 1 in there, and you'll get the consultation for $1 instead of $97. But that's only through the end of the day on Sunday. You have to book before 11:59 and 59 seconds p.m. on Sunday night, okay, to get this consultation with us for $1. All right. Thank you for your honesty and your vulnerability, Rue, and excuse me, who was that? Tim, thank you for that. Rue says that you were surprised about requesting, or found interesting what I had to say about requesting the change of asylum officer. Yep, that's cool. That's a helpful one, I think. Paul says everything is helpful. Thanks, Paul. Glad you think so. Nice. Kevin says, how to fix the problem of not speaking English fluently in your mock interview. Use interpretation. Okay, use interpretation. If you don't feel very, very comfortable in English, you shouldn't speak English. You should speak your native language, and you should take an interpreter with you for that. Okay. All right, let us go back to the training. We were at number 40, which is explaining why you didn't report to the police. So you're going to get this question about any incidents of harm or really threats that is like, okay, did you go to the police? If not, why not? Well, the officer needs to know whether the authorities are unable or unwilling to protect you, because that's part of their analysis. Now, if you didn't go to the police, uh, then you just need to be able to explain it. Okay, if in many cases it's reasonable because you've got a reason, like, well, you know, the police are corrupt and they work with the bad guys, and I know that. So if I went to the police, they would just it would make it worse. It'd make my problems worse. Well, the officer's going to ask, okay, well, how do you know that? How do you know they work with the bad guys? And you need to be ready to answer that question. What is that makes you think that that's true? Okay. So basically, what I'm saying is you need to think about if you didn't report things to the police, think about why and be ready to explain that in a way that's just as logical and reasonable. And, if you've got a good reason, then it should be okay. Now, look, if it's just if you don't have any personal knowledge about it, nothing personal has happened that makes you think, oh, I can't trust them or they won't be able to help me, then you really have to do this based off of country conditions information, which is something that I hope your lawyer is helping you do. I hope your asylum lawyer is helping you to do this through country conditions information they cite to and discuss in their brief, and they apply the facts to the law to address this question of reporting to the police. All right. Let's go on to 41. Nice. We got Mustafa literally just now said, I also booked a moment ago. Awesome. Mustafa, thank you for doing that. And thank you for mentioning it here. I'm glad that so many people have taken advantage of this opportunity to book a consultation at the slightly discounted rate of $1. Usually we charge $97. If you're on this live, you have until Sunday night to book a consultation with us for just $1. Go to winasylum.com, winasylum.com, and use the promo code 1. That's the number 1. Just put the number 1 in there. Hit enter, and it'll change the price from $97 down to $1. Winasylum.com. winasylum.com. 41, the power of your testimony. Look, I just need to stress to you, I told you earlier that the interview is the most important thing. I just want to stress to you that your testimony is way more important than anything else. These numbers on the screen, 80 and 20, those are made up. Those are just sort of like guesses. There's no science behind this. What I can tell you, though, is that what you say on the interview is during your interview is overwhelmingly way, 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 way more important than any documents that you have. It's more important than what you say in your declaration. It's more important than what you said in your application. It's more important than your evidence. It's more important than the country conditions information. It's more important than having a lawyer there with you. That doesn't help as much as performing well during your interview. What you say during your interview matters the most. Also, here's a pro tip. At the bottom of this slide, it says, never rely on your documents to make your case for you. Avoid saying things like, oh, officer, yeah, it's in my declaration. Or, look, turn to page 41 of my submission and you'll see that thing. You need to pretend that your documents don't exist during your interview. The officer doesn't want to hear about your documents during the interview. They want to hear you in your own words. Do not reference your documents during your interview, okay? You got to tell your story, not using your documents. All right? 42. Why trying to impress the officer with your personal achievements is counterproductive. This is completely understandable and reasonable that people so often think that it will help their case if they show the officer, look, I'm a good person, or I'm impressive. I'm the kind of person that you want here in America, so you should approve my asylum claim. That's the kind of thing that people think is important, and so they try to force this into their testimony. The officer asks them something, and they don't answer it directly. Instead, they talk about how great they are. That is a big mistake. It's very frustrating for the asylum officer when people do this, okay? It is not helpful to your case. Look, the officer doesn't care about your impressive university credentials. They don't care about your impressive job. They don't care about the fact that you do community service and you are a faithful person who is kind and generous. They don't care about that. They care about whether you meet the strict asylum eligibility requirements. And any second that you spend trying to talk about something else is distracting from the stuff that matters in your case, and it's annoying the officer because they don't want to hear it. They want to get through the case and get through the important stuff, and that's not the important stuff. So Don't worry about trying to impress the officer. Don't try to make them think that you are a upstanding citizen who loves America and should be allowed to stay because of that. Focus on giving them the information to show that you meet the asylum eligibility requirements. That's what matters. All right, 43. Um, Detailing your journey to the U.S. You're going to get questions about how you got to the United States. Even if you came by plane, you're still going to get questions about, okay, well, did your plane touch down in another country? Um, did you have like a layover? How long was it? Did you actually go in the airport, or did you stay on the tarmac on the plane? If you went in the airport, how long were you there? This is relevant to a question we talked about earlier about the firm resettlement bar, okay? But also, they just want to get the whole picture of your journey to the United States because it could be relevant to other things like human smuggling or fraud rings, okay? So they want to know about your departure, they want to know about the transit countries, and they want to know, about your entry to the U.S., the date and location of entry, and method of entry, okay? Uh, so be ready to talk about all of that. 44. We're talking now in 44 about the role of family members at your interview. First of all, who should attend? Well, if they're included as a dependent in your case, they need to attend. Who can be a dependent? Only your spouse and children who are under 21, age 21 at the time that you apply for asylum, and who remain unmarried. It's okay if they turn 21 after you apply. Their age is frozen at their age that they had at the time of the application. But if they get married afterwards, at any point before you get the asylum approval, then they cannot be included in your case as dependent. But if they are eligible to be included and you included on the application form, checking the box to say, yes, I want this person to be in my case, then they need to be at the interview. But their role is limited. They're almost certainly just going to have to answer what we call the bar questions, which are the questions around security and are you a terrorist, are you a criminal, asked like 20 different ways. Listen, even children get asked these questions. Everyone has to answer these questions, okay? But the good news is there's very little chance that anyone will be asked substantive questions about your case. I would say it's a 99.5% chance that they will not have to answer questions about the actual substantive part of your case. Okay, so I think the chances of that happening are so low that they don't need to worry about it. They don't need to study, they don't need to review, they don't need to know, okay, about the things that you're going to be talking about, okay? Family members will stay usually out in the waiting room until the officer's ready to do the bar questions, and the officer goes and gets them and brings them back to the interview room with you. But for the rest of the interview, usually it's just you as the principal applicant, okay? Sometimes officers will do the bar questions at the beginning of the interview, or maybe right after sort of the preliminary stuff we talked about. Sometimes they'll do the bar questions at the beginning so that they can do them there with the family. And then once the family is done answering them, the family can leave. They can leave the building, like they're done for the day. That's very convenient because they don't have to then wait in the waiting room for hours until the end of the interview for the officer to come get them and do the bar questions. But usually they have to wait for hours in the waiting room. All right. Okay. This question 45 is about why they let you leave. The officers, they love this question. If you left like through an airport or through a formal border crossing point, the officers say, well, look, if they want to harm you so much, then why did they let you leave your country without even doing anything to you? You went through immigration, right? And they would have checked your ID, they would have checked you in their systems, but they didn't do anything to you. If they wanted to harm you, then they would have arrested you and detained you and harmed you right then and there. But they didn't, so they must not want to harm you. That's the thinking, all right? Look, if you think you know what the reason is for why they let you get by and didn't do anything to you, then of course, and you have reasoning for that, of course, explain that. But here's what I think is probably very often the case. I'm not telling you to say this unless you think it's true, but I'm just saying I think this often is true. So you should consider whether it might be true in your case. That look, I think often it's the case that the government or the bad guys, well, this is only relevant when it's the government, really. The government's problem was not with, with me leaving the country. They want me to leave because when I'm in the country, that's when I'm a problem for them. That's when I'm agitating against them and they don't want me there or whatever it is about you they don't like. They don't like it because they're dealing with you and dealing with it when you're there. If you're gone, you're out of sight, out of mind. You're not a problem. They don't have to think about you. They don't have to mess with you. So they're happy to see you go. The problem isn't leaving. The problem is being there. That's why they would let you go. They don't care about you going. Okay. I think that's often probably the truth. So, think about whether you think that's true in your particular case. If so, then, you might want to consider, um, you know, possibly using that line of thinking if you think it's true. 46. You gotta be, Iffy Gaming says, I'm trying to book an appointment, but I'm not getting the option for the promo. Did you, Ife Gaming? I'm gonna go back up. Okay, remind me where we're at, guys. We're at 46. Did you get, go to winasylum.com, and when you click through on the left, it says credit card or debit card payment information. On the right, it says Asylum strategy session. There's that line that says package, gift, or coupon code. That is actually collapsed, and you have to click the little plus out to the right of it to open it up, to expand it so that it will show like it's showing now on my screen where it says enter code. You won't see that code and that enter code until you press the little plus out to the right of the word's coupon code. So try that. See if that works, Ife. Okay? Let me know. Ife, try again and let me know if you get it booked. By the way, everyone else who's watching, let me know. Have you guys had a chance to book the promotional consultation? Just $1. Usually it's $97. But if you book it by the end of Sunday, we're offering it for people that are watching this live, this training. We're offering it for just $1. You use the promo code 1, the number 1. Just put the number 1 in there. Actually, it should also work if you type the word 1, O-N-E. You go to winasylum.com, and then on the checkout page, kind of at the end when you're getting set up, it asks you to pay. You click the plus to the right of coupon code. It'll open up this box like you're seeing on my screen now, and you put the code, the number 1 in there, or type the word O-N-E and hit enter down below, and it should change the subtotal from $97 down to $1. WINASYLUM.com, winasylum.com. Back to 46. That's where we were, right? Pretty sure I said 46. Yep, there we are. Be 46. There we are. Be specific about your persecutors. The officer needs to the extent possible, understand the identity. Look, you don't always, sometimes we don't know exactly who they are, but you need to give as much information as you can to identify who they are, okay? If they're government actors, meaning like police, military, intelligence, or other official entities, that's very important to make clear, okay? Non-state actors, private parties might be political parties, religious extremists, gangs, militias, just people in the community, or even family members, okay? But you need to try to be clear when you're talking about your case to say who it was and try to give identifying information that helps the officer understand exactly who the persecutors were to the extent that that's possible, okay? 47, explaining delays in fleeing. Here's the thing. Officers like to say, oh, well, look, you told me about these problems that you had in your country. You told me about this last really bad thing that happened. But then you stayed in your country for another 6 months before you finally fled. If you're so afraid, why didn't you flee earlier, right after the really bad thing happened? Or if they really want to harm you, why didn't they come harm you during those 6 months? You were there for another 6 months and nothing happened. They must not really want to hurt you. Okay. So basically, a long time spent in your country after your problems began or after sort of the worst thing happened can sort of hurt your case. So you need to just be ready to explain why it was that you waited the time that you did. And if you've got a good reason, then, as you probably do, right, then you need to be able to articulate that, and it should be just fine. Okay. So on the right, you can see some explanations like I needed time to sell my property and raise money for travel, or had to ensure my children's safety before I could leave, or I had to wait 3 months for my passport to be issued. To be clear, I'm not suggesting that you say these things unless they actually are true for you. Remember, honesty is the best policy. Always tell the truth. I'm just giving you examples of things that like are the kind of things that sound reasonable, such that to give you a way of thinking about demonstrating the point that I'm trying to make. Okay. 48. Think about your U.S. activities. Okay. U.S. based activities. The point here is that there are things that happen after you've fled your country that can still be relevant to your case, including things that you've done in the United States, especially if those things might have put you at risk or greater risk should you have to return to your country. So if you've been involved in protests or things like that here, that could be relevant, right? Because the government might be monitoring it. Your government might be monitoring people in the United States who go to protest or speak out against the government or whatever the thing is that makes them want to harm you. They may become aware of you doing it here, or they may be become aware that you're doing it more intensively here, and they may hate you even more for it. So it could be relevant. Okay. Also, things that you've posted on social media can be relevant as well, including after you fled your country. If you've come to the attention of the persecutors because of that, or you could come to their attention because of that, it's relevant. So what I'm saying is, don't think that your testimony has to be focused just on the stuff that happened while you were in your country. Okay. Also, stuff that happened in your country after you fled can be relevant as well. So if you're already in the United States, but then you learn from your parents that, oh, the bad guys came to the family house and asked, oh, where is Sally and when is she coming back? We have a message for her. We have something for her that we need to talk with her about. That could be indicative of the fact that, yeah, they're still interested in you. They still want to harm you. So that's relevant as well. All right. Okay, we've only got two more. We're just about to finish with this training on the asylum interview. I want to know, Ife, did you have a chance to get it to work? The promo code of 1, or you can either type the number 1 or the word ONE works as well at winasylum.com. If you want to talk with us, now's a good time to schedule that consultation because we're offering these consultations at a promo rate of just $1 as long as you book by the end of the day of this Sunday. Kevin Yang, says booked just now. Nice, I like it. Booked over in YouTube. Thank you for booking, Kevin. I'm glad to hear that. All right, very nice. Ife, I want to know, did you get yours booked as well? All right, last thing before we finish this up is, look, if you want to talk with us about your situation because you think we might be able to help, we'd love to do that. And I want to talk about all the ways that we might be able to help you. But I want to let you know, I want to stress that if you were able to get help with only one aspect of your asylum claim, in other words, if there's a single thing that I could tell you, do this thing, and it's the best thing that you can possibly do to help, it's like the most valuable thing you could do to help you win your case, the single most valuable thing, it's what we call our mock asylum interview experience. Again, it's called the mock asylum interview experience, where we do a 2-hour full-scale mock interview with you. You do this with an asylum lawyer, okay, who has been vetted and trained by me personally. This program is designed by me personally. The mock asylum interview experience, I designed this personally. And it's a 2-hour mock interview followed by a separate 30-minute debrief session where we give you feedback and tips, okay, based on how you did during the mock interview. And those are the two pillars, the first two pillars, the 2-hour mock interview. And the second one is the 30-minute debrief session. The third pillar of the mock asylum interview experience is your personalized study toolkit that we're going to give to you, which is we're going to give you video recordings of those two practice sessions. And we're also going to give you audio recordings of the two practice sessions so that you can listen to them anytime while you're doing the dishes, exercising, walking the dog, in your car, on public transit, to reinforce the learning, to hear again the questions, to hear again your answers, to hear again the tips that the officer gave you and all the advice that they gave you. Excuse me, not the officer, the lawyer. This is extremely valuable, I think. We're also going to give you the transcripts from those sessions and an AI generated summary from each of the two sessions. Those are the 3 core pillars of the mock asylum interview experience. It's the 2 practice sessions plus the study toolkit. But we're also going to give you some bonus materials, some video trainings, similar to the one you're watching today, that are curated and pulled together in a bundle for you because they're absolutely the what I think are the best trainings that I've got about how to do a great job at your asylum interview. Okay. So that's called the mock asylum interview experience, and it's only $3,000. If you hired us from the beginning to help you with your asylum case with USCIS from beginning to end, it's $11,000. Okay. This mock asylum interview experience is the most important part. It's what we do with our clients who hire us from the beginning, but you're just basically getting the service as a standalone service. It's the most important part, and it costs a fraction, almost a fourth of what it costs to hire us from the beginning to end of your case. It's called the mock asylum interview experience, but to do it, you've got to do a consultation first. You can't skip straight to the mock asylum interview experience. You need to do the consultation first, okay? Because we need to see if you qualify for the mock asylum interview experience. Thankfully, luckily, for those of you who are with me right now, we're offering the consultations right now at a steeply discounted rate of $1. Usually they're $97. Today they're $1. Through the end of the, you have to book it by the end of the day on Sunday, August 17th. Yeah, August 17th, to take advantage of this promo code. The number one is the code. The code is one. You can type the number or you can type in the word ONE. Either one works. Not both. One or the other. Okay. Through the end of Sunday. And you book this at winasylum.com. WINASYLUM.com. Again, WINASYLUM.com. Nice. Ife says, booked. I got it. Thank you. Booked. Awesome. Kevin Young says, thank you for your time. Good vibes. Nice. My pleasure. Look, let's finish up here. We got a couple left. We got two more, right? Let's finish strong with the training. We're at what, 48? Or no, we did 48. We're at 49. Understanding the difference between prosecution and persecution. I just want you to know that sometimes people think that they can win asylum based on the fact that there was a criminal case brought against them, charges, and maybe a proceeding, and maybe they were even jailed or fined. And they think that, okay, well, then I must be able to get asylum. Well, no, not always. Sometimes there's legitimate prosecution, meaning if you do something that your country's laws say is illegal and you get punished for it, then it probably is not helpful for your asylum case. It's not considered persecution, but rather just lawful prosecution, okay? But if it crosses the line and becomes something that's either very disproportionate, like you get 30 years of jail for jaywalking, for walking across the street illegally, that could be a sign that it's persecution and not legitimate prosecution, because that's unreasonable and disproportionate. Or if the charges are just fake and fabricated and it's obviously that there's political motivations, that would be persecution, even though the charges are like real legitimate charges under the law, right? So basically what I'm saying is you need to understand the difference between prosecution and persecution, and know that not all things that happen to you are persecution, or not all of them are harm that count as persecution for purposes of your asylum claim. So you want to focus really on the persecution, not legitimate prosecution, and telling your story, okay, at your asylum interview. Let's see. Kent, I lost you. Oh, Kent. Yeah, I'm gonna get to you. I'll get to you in a second. Let me wrap up the training with this last point. We are at number 50. Last one, guys. Document your interview. After your interview, I think it's a great idea to go home and, or as soon as you get in the car in the parking lot after your interview, go take notes. Write down the questions and answers that you can remember. That's probably the least important part. This other stuff is more important to write down. If there was any issues that came up, like if the officer was a jerk or had a bad attitude, explain that in your notes. Say what it was, give examples and actual details and examples. If there were credibility confrontations over inconsistencies, write down what they were, okay? Take notes on the overall atmosphere and tone of the interview and the officer. Anything that you think the officer was just not doing correctly or that just seemed weird to you, take notes on that too. This is relevant because if it gets really bad, you might need to make a complaint about the officer's conduct, or you might need to file a motion to reconsider. What is that? In asylum cases where someone still has legal status on the day of their interview, you can, and you get a denial rather than being sent to immigration court, you can basically appeal. It's not called an appeal. It's done through what's called a motion to reconsider, where you're asking the asylum office to change their mind. You're asking the director of the office to look into the case because you think it was the wrong decision. You think it was legally wrong. Look, it's rare. It's very rare this actually works. Very rare. We have had it work recently, actually, but it's very rare. Um, but it does happen sometimes, and you may want to do this. So you want to have details and notes about exactly, what the issues were, what the problems were, what happened, because you want to be able to explain those in your motion or your complaint to be like, look, I took contemporaneous notes, like right after, literally within minutes or an hour after I got outside of the asylum office. I took these notes while they were still fresh in my memory. That just helps sort of reinforce that, hey, what I'm saying here is reliable and good, good stuff too, that can be trusted. Okay. Let's see. That's it. Uh, Great job. We a lot of you stayed this entire time. We're at almost 2 hours. We're at over an hour and a half, right, of training on this asylum interview training. And I think that's great that you stayed. You're serious about winning your case. You're obviously serious about trying to improve, trying to give yourself every advantage that you can. I think that's amazing. Um, and if you want to discuss your specific situation and receive personalized attention, then call us. Actually, don't actually. I shouldn't have this on here. I'm going to take this off. I'm going to go back up. Don't call us. Don't call us. Go to winasylum.com. I'm going to go over here and take off the slideshow because I don't want you to call us. I want you to go to winasylum.com, and I want you to use. I'm going to put this in the chat. Consultations. Winasylum.com. Promo code 1. Winasylum.com, promo code 1. That's to get the consultation for just $1. $1 consultation. But only if you use that promo code and book it by the end of the day on Sunday, August 17th. Yeah, 17th. Oh, Jorai Moiso says, I'm super late. I hope that you post the recording. Yeah, this is a live, and it'll be posted on my YouTube channel. For those of you not watching on YouTube, go to YouTube, go to Political Asylum Lawyers, and it's actually easy. You just go to the tabs. One of them is live, and this will be show up as a live. I think it takes a few minutes, maybe an hour or two to show up, maybe longer because this is a really long one for it to process. But you'll find this live on my YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is called Political Asylum Lawyers. Okay, Political Asylum Lawyers. And look, if you like this training, you're gonna love the mock asylum interview experience. If you want to get the thing that is the single biggest help, then you want the mock asylum interview experience, because you're going to get trainings like this in addition to, more importantly than the trainings, individualized help, because we're going to do a full-scale mock interview with you and then a 30-minute debrief session after that. That is much more important than training, than watching video training. I hope this video training was helpful for you today. I hope that you will watch all the trainings on my YouTube channel, and we've packaged some of the most helpful trainings that I've ever done on the interview together in a packet that as bonuses that you get with the mock asylum interview experience. But to be clear, the best thing is doing the mock interview experience, so that you actually do the mock interview and you get personal practice, you get personal help telling your story, answering questions that you're going to get in your interview. Muchas gracias por esta sesión, dice gran valor, dice Miguel. Thanks, Miguel. I don't know. Tim Bond says, please keep doing videos. It does help many people. I love there's no water in your videos, just helpful info with examples and explanation. Thank you so much. I don't know that expression, Tim. There's no water. Like we say fluff, at least in American English, we say fluff. No fluff, like no extra stuff that's like just irrelevant, blah, 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 unhelpful. Lisar D. Best says, is the consultation the real thing, or just to gather information about customer and make an offer? Will consultation be held by licensed lawyer? It's not the real thing. And no, it's not a lawyer. It's what we call an asylum professional. It's not a lawyer. It's someone that has been trained under my framework to analyze your situation, get to know you, and assess whether we think we're in a position to help you. And if we think so, they're going to explain to you how we will do that. Okay, in great detail. This is not a 10 to 15 minute consultation. This is 50 minutes, 50, almost an hour. It's yeah, and to be clear on the first question, when you say is the consultation the real thing, it's not the mock interview. It's not the mock interview. You have to do the consultation first to see if you qualify for the mock interview. Not everyone qualifies for the mock interview. You have to do the consultation first to see if you qualify. It's a necessary first step. Okay. Tahamina Nawabi says, can you make a video for our new asylum interview questions for this year, please? Yeah. Tamina, have you seen my asylum interview questions training? Let me see if I can think of what the URL is for that. Is it asyluminterviewquestions.com? I can't remember what the URL is. Does anyone know where you can get that training? I think it's called asyluminterviewquestions.com. Asyluminterviewquestions.com. Let me try that. I'm gonna open up a tab and try that because I think that's it, but I can't remember the URL. Asylum interview question. Nope, that's not it. I can't remember what it is, to be honest with you. I'm gonna have to get back to you on that. Look, I have a training that is 133 asylum interview questions. That's actually in reality, it's called that. In reality, there's over 400. I just kept going and going and going and going. Yeah, it's a couple years old. Will I do an update, refresh it to make it more current with some thought to some modern or some more current questions? Yeah, I'll do that. I can't guarantee it's going to be in the next few weeks. It's a lot of work. That training took forever to make. A lot of work. But yeah, I'll get to it. Kevin333 says asylum now will need to be presented in Paraguay according to Marco Rubio. Actually, I haven't seen that yet. Is that you talking about for people that are outside of the country? I'm gonna have to Google that after this call. Thanks for mentioning it, Kevin. Rue says perfect timing. Thank you once again. My pleasure. You're welcome. All videos are here divided by categories. Yeah, thank you, Kevin, or who was that? Tim. That was Tim. Tim, thank you for linking to our playlist. Appreciate that. I said I would get to a question earlier by who did I say? Who did I say that to? Oh, it was asking about. Oh, Kent said, "What about?" Say more about what I said earlier about stopping the interview and asking for a supervisor for a different officer if it gets out of control. What if the hostile officer doesn't let the supervisor? They will. They will. If you ask them for a new one, they will. They will. If they don't, I don't know. Walk out maybe. Arshia Michael says, what are the three things the officers are concerned about most? The three most important things in any asylum case are past persecution. They want to know whether you have suffered harm in the past that is sufficiently severe to rise to the level of persecution in the way that that word is used under U.S. asylum law. Number two is future persecution. They want to know what is there to point to that suggests that you are likely to be harmed in the future very gravely, such that it counts as persecution. Okay. Is there a reason to believe that you're at real risk of grave harm in the future? Number three is motivation. What is it that's motivating the bad guys to target you for harm? Because it's not enough just to show that you have been or will be persecuted. You also need to show that the persecution is on account of, or basically that means motivated, at least in significant part, by the fact that you, asylum seeker, possess one of the 5 protected characteristics under U.S. asylum law, which are your race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or something called membership in a particular social group. Okay, Kent says, Yeah, the 433 questions is on the YouTube channel, in the playlist. Cool. Good. All right. Nice. Uh, yeah, awesome. Willie FRK says, this is the best live I've ever seen on your channel. Thank you. That means a lot. I appreciate that. Very kind of you. I'm glad that you enjoyed this one. Thank you for taking the time to mention that, Willie. Appreciate it. All right. Joram Mois said, who said, I'm super late. I hope you post recording. Yeah, we're going to post it. In case you missed this, Jorah, we are offering consultations for $1. Usually they're $97, but for people that watch this live training, this asylum interview training, we're offering it for $1. To do that, you go to winasylum.com, WINASYOUM.com, winasylum.com, and you when you start to check out, like when you get to the part where you pay, where you enter your credit card information, there's a little area that says like promo code. You click on a little plus next to it to open up the drop down where it shows you a little box where it says enter, where you can enter in the promo code, put the number 1 in there, just type the number 1, or you can type the word ONE, but don't do both. It's one or the other, either the number 1 or the word 1. And then you hit like enter to process it, and it will change the subtotal from $97 to $1. But that expires at midnight on Sunday night. On Monday, it will not exist anymore. Sunday is the last day that you can use this promo code to book your consultation for just $1. Okay. So, Joy Amara, what does that mean? X. What do you mean by that? Uh, Pranati, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. What I would ask is the element you could add to that sentence, Pranati, is like, so what? The fact that you're married to a Muslim and religious conversion to Islam from Hinduism is, it's obvious to you why that would make someone want to harm you, but it might not be obvious to the asylum officer why that would make someone want to harm you. So, what would make them want to harm you? I mean, I know what it is, because I know that those things are relevant in your case. Um, but the officer might not. So you might want to add a clause to that sentence that says something like, and I've received threats from people in my community over this, and I am aware of many people who have done the same thing as me who have then been, killed, or whatever the case may be. Okay. Joey Amaro, what does this X mean? I said it's important to go to the interview with a lawyer. What about if the state's different than New York? What do you mean? It's helpful to have a lawyer anywhere. What do you mean? Why are you asking? I don't understand what you mean. Lizard best. Why are you asking if the state's different than New York? What does that have to do with a lawyer? We represent people all over the country. If that's what you're asking, it doesn't matter where you are. We're not based in New York. We're based in Texas. We're in Houston, but it doesn't matter. We help people all over the country to secure their future in America through asylum. It's helpful to have a lawyer. Yeah. Look, having a great application, having a great declaration, having great evidence, having a great legal brief where your lawyer analyzes and discusses and uses effectively country conditions information, and having a lawyer represent you on the day of your interview, all that is good. All that will help increase your chances for success. But it's not the most important thing. The most important thing is what you say on your day of your interview. And therefore, the most important thing that you can do to give yourself the best possible chance is prepare for your interview, is practice and preparation for your interview. And right now, we're offering this as a standalone service, the preparation, such that if you're not in a position to hire us for the whole thing for your case, because it's either too expensive or there's not time, whatever the case may be, we can offer you this service that is just a preparation. It's called the Mock Asylum Interview Experience. It costs $3,000. Okay, hiring us for your whole case from beginning to end costs $11,000. Just the Mock Asylum Interview Experience, if you want to do that by itself, it's $3,000. Okay, and I think that's the most effective thing that you can do to maximize your chances for asylum success. But you got to do the consultation first. We don't offer this right now outside of the context of doing a consultation first. You have to do the consultation first. Luckily for you, we're offering consultations right now for $1. winasylum.com is where you go to schedule it, and then you use the promo one, the number one, or you can type the word one, O-N-E. All right. All right. That's going to be it for today. I'm Brian Manning. I'm an asylum lawyer. I'm a former asylum officer turned asylum lawyer, and now my law firm is called Political Asylum Lawyers, and we help immigrants all over the country to secure their future in America through asylum. That's what we do all day, every day. We don't do marriage-based immigration. We don't do employment-based immigration. We do asylum all day, every day. If you want to talk with us about that, please go to winasylum.com, WINASYLUM.com. And that promo code is one, the number one. And it's valid to get a $1 consultation. It's normally $97. You can get it for $1 if you go there right now and schedule that consultation now. Okay, so we can talk with you right away at an asylum strategy session. We want to talk. We want to talk. All right. All right, guys. Have a great night. Thank you for being with me. I enjoyed this presentation. It was really great engaging with all of you. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your comments. And I hope you found this training useful. And I look forward to seeing you guys on the next Asylum Answers show. I'm Brian Manning.